Could it be? But me, you're me, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So we're going to react to the presser, the introductory presser from new head or offensive coordinator / assistant head coach, Eric Bieniemy. First thing that I want to get out of the way. Our connection has to be the worst. Now, I'm not listening to the Los Angeles Chargers press conferences, the Philadelphia Eagle press conferences, the Cleveland Brown press conferences, Vegas Raiders, so forth and so forth. I'm not listening to the other 31 teams in the league's press conferences on a consistent basis. I may catch one here or there, but I can tell you this with 100% certainty. It can't be as bad as ours. Okay. One of the things we've complained about as fans, okay, with this team is the fact that we can't hear the questions. We can't hear the answers. It's the connection is terrible. It's muffled. It's choppy. You got guys going in and out. It's freezing. These were things we complained about. Then it seemed like when Julie took over and they got some new people in place, seemed like things got better. We could hear the questions. We could hear the responses. It was louder. There were less skips, pauses, delays. Okay? Seemed like the connection may have gotten better. Seemed like they sort of got their shit together and they caught up with the rest of the league. Hell, with the rest of society. We are in 2023. We should not be having connection problems for an organization run in a multi-billion-dollar industry. That league, no one is hurting for money in the NFL. Why is it that we can't have a 30-minute press conference without it having buffering issues for literally 2/3 of the damn interview in the press conference? It's ridiculous. I thought my connection was bad or something. And then I'm in the comments and everybody's having the same issue, and it's not just me. It's ridiculous. Okay? We don't have many big-time press conferences here in Washington because we don't win shit. So when we finally have something that we want to hear, can you at least get that right? Damn. That was frustrating. Anyway, and maybe I should have watched it on the NFL Network like the rest of you. I don't know why in the hell my delusional brain decided I'll just go to the website or I'll just go to Twitter. It should be fine. Next time, and you know what? I didn't think go check NFL Network because it's such a big deal. This is a big deal. This was a national story because a lot of people think he should have been a head coach. So this was very polarizing. I don't know if they'll be carrying, some random person getting an offensive coordinator job. Maybe they do all the time, but I should have gone in. And you know what? That's a lesson learned. I'll go to NFL Network next time. I won't even bother. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing, doesn't he sound like a head coach? Doesn't he? This felt like a head coaching press conference. I said to myself, let's just get Ron the hell out of the way and let's just give you the job. Now, again, I don't even know if he's any good as an offensive coordinator, let alone a head coach. But half of the battle of a head coach is motivating your players, establishing relationships and motivating players, getting them to run through a wall for you. Ron's got that down pat, okay? It's all the other stuff, in-game management, adjustments, things of that nature that Ron struggles with, okay? And maybe Eric Bieniemy will find out later on down the line, he struggles with the same things as well, okay? But when you hear attention to detail over and over and over and over and over again, you'd like to think that won't be a department where he struggles. Now, again, this still isn't his team. I think a lot of people are reacting to Eric Bieniemy as if he's the head coach of this team. He's still not in charge, okay? So don't expect things like, when to call a timeout, clock management, when to throw the chat. All that shit is still Ron Rivera's responsibility. Eric Bieniemy does not control those things. Those things may still be an issue for this team, okay? So while there is excitement for this offense, and the reason that those things are bothersome, but they're not the end all be all is because we've been in games where had we just had better play calling, better execution on the offensive end, the things that Ron Rivera may or may not have done, not throw the challenge flag against Philadelphia, not throw the challenge flag here or there. Those things could have been swept under the rug, or at least you address them, but you address them while winning, right? We could have still won games had we had better execution offensively, scored more points against Tennessee, scored more points against the Giants. When clock management and when to throw the challenge flag have come into play, you could have still won the game with better offensive execution. You're hoping Eric Bieniemy brings that to the table, but damn, he sounds like a head coach. That was my first takeaway after the issues, the technical issues that I dealt with. Some of you didn't have to deal with it because you were smart enough to go to NFL Network, not a dum-dum like myself who decided to lean on the organization that hasn't gotten anything right in the last 25 years. Go there, right? Smart on my part. Anyway, he sounds like a head coach to me. That's number one. Number two, I loved the part, and there are several, little excerpts, little pieces of this interview, one-liners, if you will. How about the chopping wood, right? We're chopping wood over here. Yeah, I used to hear that all the time. It's always refreshing when I hear that. I loved the talking about establishing relationships. You can yell at somebody if you know them. Like we talk about being family all the time, right? We talk about family and the importance of family. Your family can talk to you a certain type of way that somebody on the street can't talk to you, right? Like, I don't know you personally. Who are you talking to like that, right? But if I know you, if I get to know you, if I establish a relationship with you, you know that there's no ill will, there's no ill intent here. I just want what's best for you. Now, the way I'm going about it may not be something that we agree on, but guess what? At the end of the day, you know what I'm out to get, and that's the best out of you. And so you're not going to take it personal. So I think it is important to establish relationships. This is a people business. You hear that all the time. And I told you, football and sports to me is a microcosm of life. Life is a people business, okay? A lot of times you don't get a job because of what you know. It's because of who you know. Life is a people business. I'm more likely to buy something from you if you're a salesman, if I like you. Yeah, I got to like the product too, but you know what? I could love the product, not like you, and say, hell to hell with your product. But if I like you, I may like the product. I may not love it, but I like you a lot. So you know what? I'll do you a favor. I'll buy the product. Life is a people business. Yeah, this is a people business as well. So I love the fact that he's talking about establishing relationships. I love that he was able to call out a few names. He just got here. He doesn't know anything. This guy was game planning for the Super Bowl just a week and a half ago. He has no idea who's on this team for the most part. But I love the fact that he was able to text some guys and get in contact with Terry and Antonio Gibson and Curtis Samuel, right? I love the fact that he was able to establish a connection and reach out and say, hey, Sam, looking forward to working with you, right? But you know what I love the most? I love the fact that he came in and he said, look, I don't give a damn about numbers. This speaks to me because I'm not an analytics guy. You guys know this, okay? I don't give a shit about what PFF is talking about, okay? I don't care what Pro Football Outsiders has to say. I don't give a shit about any of that. What I care about, wins and losses, okay? This is a wins and losses business. When it's all stripped down to its bare essentials, did you win or did you lose? Okay? And how you come about that is of no consequence. We could sit here and gripe and complain and bitch and moan about winning games 17-16 and 17-15, but guess what? When I sit here after that game's done, we were ass for 3.5 quarters against Indianapolis. But you know what I felt after that game winning 17-16? Euphoria. Okay? We beat the Bears 12-7. It was one of the ugliest games I've watched this team play in the last 2 or 3 years since Ron's gotten here. It was terrible. But we won. And it saved our season. It made our season relevant. We lose to the Bears in that game, our season's done and we're 1-5, and it's over before we get out of October. I don't care how it looks. I'm not looking for aesthetics. I just want to win. And he said, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care who has receiving stats or rushing stats. I don't care what the breakdown is of run-pass ratio. I just want to win, okay? At the end of the day, I'm just trying to do whatever it takes to get a dub on the board. And he said, I'm going to look at what every player does, and I'm going to try to put them in the best positions to be successful. We didn't hear that from Scott Turner. All we heard about was his stinking ass system. Okay? His system. I want a guy that comes in here and says, look, I don't really know what exactly we do best at this moment. I know we got some players, not according to LaDainian Tomlinson, and a lot of people. This is how you know. This is why I tell you guys, stop listening to the national media, because they have no idea. They don't watch our games. They're watching highlights. They listen to other people who they think know about what's going on here, and that's what they base their opinion off of. I watched LaDainian Tomlinson on a 1-minute clip talk about, man, Eric Bieniemy going to Washington. If he can go to the Commanders where they don't have any talent, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, we don't have any talent. Clearly, you haven't been watching us, but he hasn't. Why? Because we're the Commanders. We're the Commanders. What does he need to watch us for? They have no idea what we have out here. We're a sleeping giant. But we got to get better play out of the quarterback position, or none of that shit matters. And we got to get better play calling, and we're hoping that's what Eric Bieniemy brings to the table. And I love the fact that he wants to get the most out of these players, but more importantly, he doesn't really care how it gets done. Hey, we may run it 42 times this week. Next week, we may run it 14 times, but throw it 38 times. Whatever we got to do to win a game, that's what he sounds like he's willing to do. That's what I want to hear. So that was really refreshing. You knew he was going to have to answer a lot of questions over and over and over and over again. And he did. Okay. A lot of questions he was asked about, you know, not getting a head coaching job and leaving Kansas City for here. And, you know, what went into the decision-making process of leaving Kansas City and coming to Washington. He had to answer the same questions. And essentially his response was, I'm going to be where my feet are. We hear that from Ron all the time, and we hear that from Eric Bieniemy, and I've heard that from him in Kansas City. This is not the first time he said that. It won't be the last time he's going to say that. But I also like the fact that he's aware, right? He says, look, I'm big on, and this is something that I'll probably use moving forward. But he said something to the effect, and I may not get it exactly verbatim, word for word, but he said something to the effect of, you know, complacency is the enemy of progress. Something to that effect. I don't think he used the word complacency. He said something else, but it's the same concept. I'm going to use that because I believe that to be the case. I believe that to be very true. The minute you become comfortable is the minute that things start to change. I learned that as a youth, you know, because I was more talented than a lot of kids I was playing against when I was a kid. I didn't work hard. And you know what happened? Everybody else that I was better than caught up with my ass and then passed me. And before I realized that, it was too late. So the minute you get comfortable, and you see that in business, you know, once upon a time, I know a lot of you don't even know what the hell this is. Okay, you're not old enough to know, but once upon a time, stores like Montgomery Ward and Kmart ruled the day. Okay, they got comfortable. They didn't think they could be touched. And then you know what happened? Competitors saw what they were doing, learned from their mistakes, and came up and passed their ass in the game and shut down all of their stores. He's looking for a new challenge. He's going to get that here in Washington. And he said something that I hope you guys were listening. I hope you caught this, because he didn't stutter and he didn't make a mistake when he said it. He said, I'll reevaluate my situation next year. he's not planning on staying here very long. Just so you know, unless he's being promoted to head coach here, he's not looking to make this his permanent home and address. We all know this. But he just did a 10-year bid in KC, right? He was locked up. They won't let me out. He was locked up. He just did a 10-year bid. He just came home from a 10-year bid in KC. There were some benefits in there, right? But he just came home from a 10-year bid. He ain't doing another 5 or 3 or even I don't even think he's doing a 2-year bid here, okay? This is in and out. Literally, this is like being on probation. He's coming here to prove that he can get the job done as an offensive mind, that he has the ability. And, you know, I'm sick and tired of having that conversation because we've done what we've done. You know, this man has had all these interviews, and a lot of you brought up some great points, and we'll talk about that tonight. I don't want to talk about that right now because I want to talk about that later on tonight, because I think some of you brought up some great points that I didn't bring up, that some didn't even cross my mind, and they were great points, and I want to talk about them, expound upon them, and I want to you know, dispel some notions that some of you have, and then I want to build upon some of the things that I believe you're on the right track with. So we'll save that for later on tonight. But all in all, my biggest takeaway, overarching theme of this is I'm excited. Everything that we heard about Eric Bieniemy, we got in the initial press conference. We got passion. We got emotion. We got a guy that's going to be detail-oriented. We got a guy that's going to push his players hard. And you saw that. You heard him talk about establishing relationships that allows you to get into somebody's ass. Pause. Okay? Can't talk to Terry sideways to get him to do what I need him to do if me and Terry don't have a relationship. I can't get on Antonio Gibson about not being on the right track on his run to the outside, about not pressing that hole, if we haven't established a relationship. Now it's just some dude yelling at me, I don't deal with that shit well. So what I gathered is this guy's not an offensive coordinator. He's a head coach. So while this feels good, and again, we'll see how good of a play caller he is, because again, we have no idea. Okay, he could be horrendous as a play caller. He could be a great motivator, but terrible at actually calling plays. But you don't, that's not a prerequisite to being a head coach, which is why he should have gotten a job already. You can let somebody else call the plays. If you can galvanize 53 men for one common goal, that's what it's about. Dan Campbell wasn't a play caller. But you know what he can do? He can get 53 guys to run through a damn wall for him one time a week for 17 weeks. And it doesn't just start on, you know, Wednesday when you show up for practice. That starts in the offseason. There is a culture that you build. I could see Eric Bieniemy doing that. And well, I might add. It's bittersweet watching him talk, listening to him, seeing how he conducts himself. It's bittersweet because on one hand, I'm like, this is exactly what we need. On the other hand, I'm saying it's temporary. More likely than not, it's temporary. Okay? Bieniemy's the guy, and I told you, I'm looking for a fiery dude. He's not young. A lot of you, we've been talking about wanting younger, you know, more energetic. He's everything we're looking for. Nope, he's not 38. Nope, he's not 43. Yeah, he's 50 plus. Doesn't matter to me. But I told you, I wanted more energy. You know, he's the guy that I'm looking for. He's not going to be standing on the sidelines, arms crossed, folded, you know, looks like he's, you know, thinking about swinging golf clubs. You know, something good happens and you get a golf clap, you know, maybe a little grin. He's going to be juiced up on the sidelines. You make a big play, he's excited. Like, that's what I think we need. it's temporary. Because I think whether he's successful or not, he's probably gone next year. So while I'm excited about the prospects of him being here for a year and calling the plays and seeing what he can do, I'm also a bit torn, because in my mind, I'm like, he's probably going to be gone next year. And if there's success here, he's going to get credit, but he's going to have to do it elsewhere more likely than not. I mean, we've been down this road before. We watched Sean McVay leave and eventually become a Super Bowl winning head coach because we had a guy that was semi-successful in Jay Gruden, and we weren't willing to part ways with him. And at that time, I said it, I wouldn't have fired Jay Gruden. I said that then, and obviously hindsight is 2020, but I wouldn't have fired Jay Gruden in that moment. He just come off of 2 straight winning seasons. We hadn't had that since 91 and 92 here in Washington. He was the first coach to do it. And if not for field goal kicker that couldn't make kicks that year, and a disastrous week 17 loss to the Giants, but we shouldn't even have been in that position. If Dustin Hopkins can make a chip shot field goal over in London against the Cincinnati Bengals, we're in the playoffs. So we could be in a similar situation. Eric Bieniemy could come in here. We could end up with the 11th rated offense in football. We could be scoring 26.7 points a game. We could end up 10-7 next year, make the playoffs, and we could feel like we've got our quarterback. Sam Howell goes out, throws for 3,752 yards, 24 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, and we got our guy. And then Bieniemy's gone, new offense, new verbiage, and then we're back into the hamster wheel once again, running in place. That's how my mind works, because I've been down this road before. So while I'm excited, and I don't want to rain on your parade, because I watched that presser and I left feeling like he's the guy. But I'm like, he's not the offensive coordinator. He's the head coach. He's the guy. That's the guy I want leading this team. Again, I don't know if he's a play caller. I don't know if he'll have great in-game situational awareness, throwing the challenge flag, when to call timeouts, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know about any of that stuff. He's never been in that position. But I damn sure hell would love to find out. I know what Ron is. It's sort of like Taylor Heineke, right? Ron is Taylor Heineke. I know what I'm getting. He is a solid head coach, but he's not a needle mover, okay? I love him to death. I feel like I can do better, though. I'm looking at Eric Bieniemy and I'm like, he's Sam Howell for me. I want to see what this is about, but not in an offensive coordinator capacity. More like head coach. But look, it is what it is. And so my initial impressions is that this is a great hire. We got a guy that is motivated, and he's not going to tell you that he should have already been a head coach. I thought he handled that well. He took the high road there, didn't point fingers, didn't blame anybody, wasn't looking for any sympathy or any of that stuff. He's like, look, it is what it is. It'll happen when it happens. If it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. If not, I'm going to be where my feet are. He's got a chip on his shoulder, man. He came to Washington with a purpose. He doesn't have the same mindset of a LaDainian Tomlinson in the respect that we don't have any talent. He knows we have talent here. He wouldn't have taken this job if we did, because he's trying to set himself up for success. But he is thinking to himself, if I can turn Washington around, again, it's Washington. Okay. John Kahn, I gave you the tweet from John Kahn that said since 2000, this team has only scored 20 points or more per game 5 times in the last 22 years. We were 28th in points per game last season. Again, we're terrible on offense and have been pretty much for the last 2 decades. If I can go to Washington and turn that program around offensively, whether we win ball games or not, If I can get this offense in the top half of the league in points per game, show consistency throughout, and that's something else he preached, consistency. He's like, we're going to put consistency on tape. I love it. He's going to get a job. He knows that. We know that. And I think the rest of the league understands that. The difference is the rest of the league thinks we don't have any talent. These pundits out here think we don't have any talent. And Eric Bieniemy knows better. Nobody's looking to be set up for failure. You don't go from Kansas City to a place with no talent and expect to show what you're capable of. That's generally not how it works. This isn't college football, okay? You don't get to go out and recruit guys and get players in there that can help you turn a program around like that. This is the NFL. You don't have any control over the roster, salaries, all that stuff. You're an offensive coordinator. You're not the head coach. So all you can do is coach what you're given. And he's got some pretty good talent on that side of the football that he'll be coaching. Now, all he really has to do is find a way to get the most out of Sam Howell. If Sam comes in and plays the way that we think he is potentially capable of playing, the pieces are there. He called out a lot of the names of the guys that he's going to be relying on. So now you just got to come in and find a way to get it done. So I'm excited, but it's bittersweet because, like he said, I'm where my feet are, but I'm thinking about the future too. I'm thinking about the future and what's going to suck. Because in my mind, this is what I'm seeing. I'm visualizing 12 months from now, right? We're sitting here roughly the same amount of time, Eric Bieniemy is going to be introduced as the head coach of fill in the blank. Ron's going to still be here because we made the playoffs. And then in 2024, we're going to suck again. Oh, no, we suck again. Ron's going to get fired, and Eric Bieniemy is going to be off having success elsewhere. And we're going to be looking for a guy, and who knows where we go from there. And that's the dilemma that I am, wrestling with in my head. And again, that could be all for naught. Eric Bieniemy could be terrible, and all of this stuff that I'm talking about could be nonsensical and irrelevant. Ron could get canned next year. We could promote Eric Bieniemy, and all this stuff I'm talking about is once again rendered irrelevant. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Let's just be present. Let's be where our feet are, okay? That's the theme for the day, okay? Let's just be where our feet are. Eric Bieniemy seems like the right hire. I'm excited to see what he does with this offense. I think he's a motivator. I will say this. There were quite a few third-person references. I don't know if you caught that. Quite a few Eric Bieniemys calling Eric Bieniemy Eric Bieniemy. There are enough I's and me's in there to drown out the Eric Bieniemys, but there were quite a few of those. I'm not a big fan of people talking about themselves in the third person. That's not my thing. But if you ever hear me say like something to the effect of, that's not how Louie T rolls, I need you to call me out on that shit. And maybe I'm being funny if I do that, but he was being serious. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. Let's see what you guys have to say. I got a super chat here from Fat American. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, the local news network had it streaming perfectly. Everyone had it streaming perfectly except Washington. And I went to the one place where I knew I was going to get a garbage product, and I went and got a garbage product anyway. That's on me. That's not on anybody but me. Insanity, the definition of it is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I'm insane. Insane in the membrane. Insane in the brain. Insane in the membrane. Got no brain. He's insane. I'm insane because I do the same shit over and over again. Complacency is the enemy of success. All right? Or growth. Going to the Washington stream, whether it's on Twitter or on their website or on YouTube, that's comfortable for me. Instead of me saying, hey, let me go check NFL Network or check something else, I went to the one place that I'm comfortable going to, and I got the same shitty product that I always get. So I got what I deserved. Kudos to all of y'all who bypassed the bullshit and got to a quality stream or a quality presser. Let's see. John Graves III. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JG3 writes, Darren Smith reported that EB helped Andy Reid's clock management. I think Ron will be open to EB helping in that area as well. I don't know what will be what. I don't know how, vocal he'll be in that role. If that'll be something that Ron is even open to. Ron struggles in that department. Ron needs help in that department. And I hope he would be willing to allow Eric Bieniemy to, if that is in fact the case, again, I can't confirm nor deny that. But if that is in fact the case, and he was instrumental in helping Andy Reid, manage the clock, then that is something that I hope Ron would be open to as well, because that is not something that he handles very well. So I would love it if, that's something that he would be able to, help impart a bit of knowledge on, and maybe even be, a part of that process on game days, because that is not something, as we all know, that is a strong suit of Ron Rivera. So we'll see what happens. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Video Channel writes, Midday Marauders post up. Y'all know what it is, man. Lou, Video Channel. Thoughts on Greg Lewis possibly joining EB staff? So I was going to save that for tonight because I alluded to that on the last stream that we had when we talked about his hiring. I said, we've seen guys already depart, We saw Drew Terrell, we saw I think they'd given him the title of assistant, offensive assistant, whatever, who was the former receivers coach. Haas. We saw Haas be relieved of his duties. So times are changing, and I said he's gonna. And remember, I talked about one of the last things that they had to iron out with his contract was he wanted to bring some guys along with him. One of those guys is Greg Lewis. I talked about Greg Lewis on different streams, podcasts, on the Washington show. I said, Greg Lewis is a guy that's in line in Kansas City to be moved up the food chain if, he departs. He being Eric Bieniemy, and Bieniemy's like, I'm going to bring my guy with me because we already know, we see what Andy's going to do. Andy's going to promote a guy that was in that, offensive coordinator position before, and Matt Nagy, who got a head coaching job with the Bears and it didn't work out. He's going to promote him. So Eric's like, let me grab my guy and bring him with me. And wherever I go, because I'm going to tell you what's going to ultimately happen. Eric Bieniemy's he's going to be loyal. And we see this in the league. We talk about this being a boys club and all of that. And so if he gets a head coaching job, when he gets a head coaching job, Greg Lewis is probably going to be his offensive coordinator. He's going to bring his boys with him. Okay. And then I know y'all saw the conversation around the Stanford offensive coordinator, the former quarterback that got beat out by Andrew Luck, he is potentially coming to Washington for an interview to see. Like, we're adding dudes outside of the box. Like, this shit feels different, but I said the same thing after we beat Jacksonville in week 1 last year. This feels different. It wasn't. Okay? So take everything with a grain of salt. We'll talk more about it tonight, though. We'll talk more about it tonight. Frankie, yo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Frankie, yo. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, a wise man always said, why not us? We've been talking about that. Why not us? They asked Eric Bieniemy, why Washington? He said, why not Washington? I love it. I love it. Today, another wise man said, why not Washington? After that presser, I am 100% hyped up. Again, take press conferences with a grain of salt. We've been duped in these things before, so don't get too ahead of yourself. But everything that we were told we were getting, we essentially got in that press conference. So it's always refreshing when you're told this is what you're going to get, and then you get there, and then you get what you expected to get, or you were told you were going to get, and then some. All right. There's nothing like going to an amusement park and people say, man, you got to get on this ride, and this ride. I'm telling you, this ride is a long wait, right? Unless you got a pass and you can go straight to the front of the line. But a lot of us are too cheap to do that. It's going to be about a good hour, wait. But I'm telling you, it's worth the 38 seconds you're going to be on that roller coaster. Right? And then you go to the amusement park, you get on that ride, and then you say, all right, I'm out to stand in this line. Let me see what it's hitting on. He said this ride was legit. I'm a roller coaster aficionado. Let me be the judge. You stand in that line for an hour and 5 minutes, you get on the ride, and you come away saying, that shit was legit. That exceeded my expectation. That's a great feeling. Or you try a restaurant, somebody says, yo, I'm telling you, this shit is busting. Like, you gotta try this. You go and you're like, it's probably not even all that. Like, I've been reading reviews, people on Facebook, people on, social media have been saying it's bomb. I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna see what it's about. And you go there and you're like, yo, this shit is busting. I'm going back. The ambiance was great. The service was excellent. They was playing a little smooth jazz, 105.3 in the background. Yeah, I'm going to go back. And the food, yeah, it was all of that. That's what this presser felt like. We were told we were going to get accountability. We were told we were going to hear about a guy that was energetic, competitive. All right. We were told we were going to get a detail-oriented guy. And what did we get? All of those things and then some. It's the equivalent of how Detroit Lions fans probably felt after watching Dan Campbell talk about biting off kneecaps in the first presser. They were juiced up. And now look at what he's doing in Detroit. They feel like they got the right guy. The difference is that was a head coach. This is an offensive coordinator. So a little bit different, just a little bit different. Anyway, Rosario Satara Pileski, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'm wearing the Ron's Plan shirt once again. We should be printing off Bieniemy is a friend of me shirts. That's what we should be wearing right now, what we should be promoting. But again, that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is Ron did the right thing by bringing him on board, because Ron's trying to save his job. And if Eric Bieniemy is the right man for the offensive coordinator position, it's going to give Ron new life, and maybe, just maybe, one of the guys that Bieniemy ends up bringing here, or they bring in because Bieniemy comes in, maybe that guy will come in, and if Bieniemy leaves next year, they'll have someone in-house that they can promote to offensive coordinator, and we keep the party going, you know? So we'll see. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Dejan writes, Lou, I think we got to swing for tight end D. Washington. I'm not interested in anybody at the tight end position early in the draft. You're going to have to spend a second-round pick more likely than not to get a guy like that. He's huge. He's athletic. I think there's some work to be done with him in both the run and passing game, but there's a lot to work with there. He's a rare specimen from a size, height, weight, speed standpoint. You just, those don't grow on trees. You know, him and Max Mayer, Michael Mayer are they're rare breeds, you know, from a height, weight, speed perspective. So that's cool, but we got other pressing needs to address. I actually like what we have at tight end. I don't love it yet because I haven't seen enough of Cole Turner or, Amani Rodgers, but I've seen enough to know that there's something there. And with better play calling, we might be able to actually tap into that. So, we'll see. Mike Lowry, I just have to hit this one. Comfort is the enemy of progress. That's the line right there. That's the one I'm stealing from him. I'm going to go ahead and put that in my bag of tricks, okay? That's now officially in my tool belt, okay? Comfort is the enemy of progress. That's a gem. When we talk about dropping gems on your melon, which I try to do as often as possible, I just had one dropped on my melon, all right? My shit was open, and he said, hey, let me drop this gem in here for you. Boop! I appreciate that. Gem received and accepted, all right? Comfort is the enemy of progress. That's a gem for your melon, okay? Y'all see what I'm talking about. I see Tommy with Circuit City, the Unknown Ism with Sears. All of these companies, they didn't think they could be touched because they had the game on lock in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and into the 80s. They didn't see Walmart coming. Circuit City didn't see Best Buy coming. That's because they didn't plan for the future. They were complacent. They were comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Duncan Wright writes, Tom Brady calls Dallas the donkey cowgirls. Facts. That's so random that I'm going to assume that you've had a few to drink already at noon. You still my guy, though. I appreciate you as always. Let's see. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Starface, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, this team can't produce a live stream. Stuttering. They cannot. And again, that's my fault. When I have options, I need to pursue those options. NFL Network's not covering a post-game press conference. They're not covering a presser after practice on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. I have to go to the team website or the team YouTube channel or Twitter for that information. This was a big one. I didn't have to settle for the bullshit that I've been accustomed to. I could have gotten better and I settled. That's on me. I know what they're going to do. I'm not putting it on them anymore because I tell people this all the time. You know how someone is going to react. You know how someone is. You know their tendencies. You know how they are going to react to certain situations. So it's not their job to change. If somebody's 65 years old, trust me, they're not changing at this point of their life. So instead of you getting upset at a reaction that you know is coming, you need to make the necessary adjustments. Okay? Mom's not changing at 63 years old. Your auntie is not changing at 57. Okay. Your uncle is still going to piss you off with the same shit at 61 years old. So guess what? You need to make the adjustment. I should have made the adjustment today, and I didn't. So I can't be mad at Washington because I already know they produce bullshit. I know that. I know I'm coming and I'm going to get buffering and I'm going to get choppiness and I'm going to miss this word and I'm going to miss this entire sentence. And he's going to freeze. And he's going to come back and he's going to be talking. But he's going to be pixelated. I know what I'm going to get. And I still went anyway. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Zoe Life, No Life writes, I'm not going to get too hyped, but one thing I took away from that presser was Bieniemy is a dog. Felt like a head coach presser with all those questions. It did. And I felt a head coaching vibe. Like the first takeaway after, me bitching and complaining about something that I signed up for, so I shouldn't have been complaining about, was I said that felt like a head coach press conference. That he gave me head coaching vibes. That didn't feel, and I'm listening to people. I saw a tweet today from somebody that said Washington hiring Eric Bieniemy is the equivalent of Washington trading up to get Robert Griffin III. No, it's not. It's not even close. I can't tell anybody how to feel. I wanted so badly to comment on that and say, dude, you're way off on this. Because had he been hired to be the head coach, yep, I could second that. Speaking of which, has Washington ever had a head coach that was black? Just thinking about it. I'm pretty sure the answer is no. And I'm not talking about interim head coaches. I'm well aware that Ray Rhodes was interim head coach here. And I'm well aware that Terry Robisky was an interim head coach. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually went out and hired a dude to be the head coach here in Washington. I don't think they've ever done that. That would be pretty damn significant. Then I would be as excited as I was when we traded up for Robert Griffin III. He's an offensive coordinator. Put that shit in its proper perspective. Okay. Definitely felt head coachish to me. Bradley Campbell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Bradley, writes, the fact that Sam Howell, Terry McLaurin, some of the players were at the press conference speaks volumes about this new hire. That's not uncommon for some of your leaders and some of the veterans who want change to show up on a day like today. I've watched press conferences for other organizations and some of the players were sitting right in the front row. But usually that's for a head coaching hire. It's really for a coordinator hire. So there is some significance there, but I've seen that before. That's not new. A lot of, players want to meet guys that they feel like are going to be impactful in person when he shows up to the facility for the first time, really. So I wasn't shocked, but I expected that. I actually would have been somewhat disappointed if 2 or 3 of the guys didn't show up. To have probably like 4 or 5 of them there is saying a lot. It speaks volumes, but it's not uncommon. I'll just tell you that. Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Zoe, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, cheers to the end of the ex-Panther retreads. I'll toast to that. For years, we would sit here and get an ex-Panther retread and bring them here. And I think Ron is realizing, hey, my time is almost up. And part of the reason my time is almost up is because I brought a lot of those dudes with me from Carolina and they ain't getting the shit done. So I think now he's realizing, and he probably spoke to some people that he trusts, and they probably say, hey, look, man, you got to start doing shit differently. You want different results? You got to do some different shit, man. You keep repeating the same cycle over and over again, and you're going to end up golfing with your wife a lot more because you won't be coaching. So I think Ron kind of took heed to that this offseason. And you see, he waited on Bieniemy. He could have been hasty. He waited on Bieniemy. He got his guy. And he's moving on from some of the guys that were here. And he's bringing in guys that we weren't thinking about. We weren't thinking about some of these guys that are off doing other things as guys that would be here in what capacity. So, yeah, I like it. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, writes, are we going to get anybody in free agency? We've been striking out on big money players lately. Not saying we should get everyone, but just a couple of guys. I don't know, JP. I don't really know how they're going to address or attack free agency. I'd like to think that they're going to spend some money. They've got some bread. We don't have to pay a quarterback this year. They're going to get rid of Carson Wentz. They're going to free up some more cap space. He right now is the person making technically the most money on the team at $28 million. Okay. They're going to rid themselves of his contract. All right. And that's going to take some more money off the books. And they're going to have some money to spend. And it's up to them to decide if they want to go out and spend it on, one or two big name free agents, or if they want to spread it around and get 2 or 3 offensive linemen, go out here and get a veteran linebacker, go out here and get a nickel corner or whatever. I don't know what they're going to ultimately decide to do. But I think that they feel like they're close to what? Don't ask me. But I think they feel like they've built this roster to a point where now they're 1 or 2 pieces away from not only making some noise and making it to the playoffs, but maybe doing some damage when they get there. Better play from the quarterback position, better play calling from the offensive coordinator, better play at linebacker, better play in the secondary, specifically at corner, better offensive line play. And again, can't fix everything in one offseason. I just need you guys to understand that. So I don't think we're that far off at linebacker. I just think we need more depth, right? We could use a dog inside, right? But some of us think Cole Holcomb is that dog, right? But we can't be in a position where if one guy gets hurt, it goes to shit at linebacker. Like, that's the biggest issue I have. Whether you bring Cole Holcomb back or not, it is what it is. But if Cole Holcomb gets injured or Jamin Davis gets injured, knock on wood, you got to be able to bring in another guy and not feel like you're having this massive drop-off. You shouldn't be falling off a cliff or altering what packages you play and now having to bring a safety down essentially on a permanent basis, because that's what happened. When there was no Cole Holcomb, they had to bring essentially Cam Curl down into the box on a permanent basis. And then when he got injured, what are you going to do? I think there will be 1 or 2 big-time free agents signed. Not counting our own, because I think Daron Payne, they'll get a deal done with him in July like they always do. They're going to slap the franchise tag on him, and then they'll get a deal done with him right before that deadline for the franchise tag. Guys. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy JP writes, you think Ron is aware anything but a playoff berth next year means he's out? And could we be a playoff team in 2023? I believe so personally. I think Ron is more than aware. He's been through this. This is what I keep telling him. Ron is not dumb. Okay. Ron is a lot of things. Stupid is not one of them. I keep telling y'all this. Okay. Ron is very aware of what is going on. Hence the firing of Scott Turner. Okay. If Ron were delusional and thinking I still got time, he might have held on to Scott Turner for another year. Right? Ron realizes clock's ticking. I went through the same shit in Carolina. That's what Ron's telling himself. I went through the same shit in Carolina. If Snyder sells, this new owner is going to come in and I am on borrowed time. I'm not going to get a full season thereafter. If that owner comes in this year, say April, he's going to sit down. He's going to assess the situation. And one of the first things he's going to take a look at is me. And if we come out like we've done the first 3 years I've been here, and after 8 weeks, we're 2-6, or we're 3-5, or we're 1-6, and we've had a bye week, I'm going to be fired. Even though there's a 4-game win streak coming at some point, and at some point we'll be 6-6 or 7-5, and everybody will be thinking, hey, look out for Washington, only to have the bottom fall out of the season at the end. He won't even get to that point. Start slow again. I dare you. I double dog dare you. Start slow again. Start 1-4 again. Your ass might not make it to October. You might not make it to Halloween. Ron is well aware. He didn't make it out of his last season in Carolina. He knows what's at stake. That's why he's loading up the pantry. There was never a better time as a kid than when my mom and dad would go to Rack and Sack. For those of you who know, you know what Rack and Sack was back in the day. 757, stand up. They would come home with bag after bag after bag after bag after bag of Rack and Sack. Hell, most of the time I used to be right there with them, picking up shit, throwing it in the cart. But on those rare occasions that I wasn't with them, maybe I was upstairs game heading it up. Maybe I was outside playing. Maybe I stayed at a friend's house. All those times you would go in the fridge, open it. No, it ain't shit in there. But maybe this time when I open it up, it'll be different. Maybe I'll see something that I didn't see the last 5 times I opened the fridge. Nope, it's the same shit. Ain't nothing in there. Ain't nothing in the pantry. But when they come home with those Rack and Sack bags and they load that pantry up and that fridge is full, you open the freezer and there's shit in there that you ain't seen in months. Oh, that's a hell of a feeling. Okay. That's what Ron's doing right now. Ron's loading this shit up. He's loading up the cupboard. We got shit in the fridge we haven't seen in months. All in the pursuit of protecting his job. He didn't bring Eric Bieniemy here to take his job. He brought Eric Bieniemy here to save his job. We'll see if it works. Yes, I think we can be a playoff team. Yes, I understand that the schedule is tougher. But I don't worry about those things. I always tell you guys the same thing every year. If we take care of what we have to take care of, everything else will take care of itself. I don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Am I keeping a watchful eye on Dallas, Philly, and New York? Absolutely. You keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. You damn right I got an eye on what the hell they're out here doing. I'd be a damn fool if I didn't. But am I more concerned with what they have going on than what we have going on? No. You'd be a damn fool if you are. So, do I think we can make the playoffs? Yeah, you're damn right I do. But we can't do the same shit we've been doing the last 3 years under Ron and expect to make the playoffs. I'll tell you that much. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, King of the North, writes, Eric Bieniemy refers to himself as Eric Bieniemy because that's what Eric Bieniemy does. LOL. Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 of those in there, and I was like, that's not my steez, right? But to each his own. I'm not here to judge, okay? But there were a few Eric Bieniemys in there. You know, I was like, Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Door Gunner writes, this might be the biggest offseason in the last 25 years or maybe ever. Hopefully new owner, new stadium with new owner, new OC, and young QB. Pumped. What did I tell y'all? I literally said this 2 weeks ago. We did a stream, and I said, Next week, the biggest offseason in franchise history begins. Next week. This was the week of the Super Bowl. I had a show. The title was literally the biggest offseason in franchise history begins next week. And the reason I said it was the biggest offseason in franchise history, because one, and this is the reason it's the biggest. I mean, you can change offensive coordinators, find a quarterback, all that stuff. Daniel Snyder may be selling this franchise. Us getting back what he stole from us over 20 years ago is within reach. I can almost grab it. I can almost take back ownership of what was once one of the most prestigious franchises in the entire NFL. We're this close to getting his ass out of here. What stands between us and getting our team back is just a measly $7 billion. Will somebody please stand up and give this man $7 billion so he can get the hell out of here? Please. That immediately trumps everything and makes this the biggest offseason in franchise history. But then when you add on to that, as if you needed to add anything, that they got rid of Scott Turner, which had to happen. If you weren't going to fire Ron, then you better best get rid of Scott Turner. Now you got to figure out who you're going to hire. That's a big deal because, again, if Ron's looking to save his job, he better get this right. We talked about quarterback. We haven't had a franchise quarterback in the nation's capital since Joe Theismann. Joe Theismann snapped his leg in half in 1985. We haven't had a franchise quarterback here in almost 40 years. Okay. We've had guys that have had flashes. Doug Williams, Mark Rippon, Brad Johnson. I could go on and on and on. Mark Brunell had a nice little cup of tea here. Robert Griffin III had a season. Kirk Cousins had 3. But we've never had a guy we can call our own here in Washington. I don't know if Sam Howell's that guy or not. But I'm interested. We're going to find out. That's exciting, right? There's a lot of intrigue surrounding this organization, and a lot of it stems from, can we get Daniel Snyder the hell out of here? Everything else will just fall into place. You talked about new stadium. You get a new owner, new stadium is soon to follow. There's a lot, excuse me, to be excited about with this organization. That's why this is the biggest offseason. And that's what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago when I said that. And I think after hearing Bieniemy talk, a lot of you are starting to feel that as well. A lot of you are starting to feel that energy, and you're starting to get it. You're starting to understand what I was referring to when I said this is the biggest offseason in franchise history. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, like I told you, Lou, it would behoove Ron to make sure that these are capable assistants that run same system as EB. Either that or hire EB at head coach. I think what ultimately is going to take place is Ron is trying to set himself up because, again, if EB is successful, and I think Ron, when he sat down with Eric Bieniemy, Ron said, bro, I know what you're going through. I interviewed 8 times before I got a head coaching job. I was a part of the Rooney Rule. It took me, probably 3 or 4 coaching cycles before I finally got an opportunity to be my own head coach, my own guy. I know what you're going through. So what I'm telling you right now is this is going to be brief for you. I'm getting you in and out of here. This is a car wash. All right. You going in and you coming out of head coach, bro. All right. I'm going to get you this job. And what Ron has to have the foresight of, and like I said, Ron's not a dummy, is he's got to put guys in place that when EB takes that job, somebody else can slide into his position seamlessly and you can keep the party going. What you don't want is to be, you're not blindsided. You know what he's coming here for. You're not hiring some hotshot, up-and-coming 38-year-old positional coach that's going to have to prove himself for 3 or 4 years before he gets the job. You're hiring a guy that was the offensive coordinator of the best team in offensive football for the last 5 years. You're hiring him essentially for 1 year to come in here and prove he can get it done so he can get a head coaching job. This is a stepping stone for him. So you better be prepared. If he does, in fact, use this as a stepping stone and you benefit from it and you win football games and you're here again in 2024, you better be prepared for when he departs to have someone take his spot and make it a seamless transition. Because if you're not, you're going to find yourself right back where you were before he got here. And more likely than not, you'll be fired. So I think Ron is well aware of what's going on. I think he gets it. And I think that's why you're seeing Greg Lewis, you're seeing Tavita and all of these guys potentially be here. Tavita Stevens and all these guys potentially coming here. Because if EB leaves and he takes Greg Lewis with him, that's cool. I got Tavita Stevens here. I can promote him to head offense coordinator and keep the party going. So we'll see. Logan Lodo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Logan Lodo writes, listening to his speech reminded me of listening to Coach Prime a little bit. Had me hyped up. Yeah, I mean, Dion is capable of doing that. Great motivators, people who are able to tap into the psyche of players and motivate them, they sound a lot like what we heard today. Sound like you're sitting down and you're getting a sermon, right? There's an art to being able to get people to not only listen, but then want to then act. There's an art to that. And he clearly has a gift. And a wise man once told me, a gift is only a gift if you give it away. So I have no doubts that when that opportunity comes, and it will come for him to be a head coach, he'll be ready. He'll be ready. But he definitely gave me those type of vibes today for sure. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel writes, wait, first of all, double up, thank you for doubling up. Video channel, who writes, EB is going to run things like he's a head coach. Man is definitely auditioning, and it started today with the presser. The league is watching. Yeah, league is watching. Coaches is gossiping. Owners all in your shit. What's the cause of it? I need to know. Some of y'all got that. You're right. Today was the beginning of him auditioning for a head coach position. And I think if this was the first test, aced it. A+. Now you need action. Okay. He just took the first step. Now actionable steps need to be taken. Now I need to see. He talked about, it's starting, phase 1 of OTAs, phase 2 of OTAs, phase 3 of OTAs, and then training camp. Well, this was phase 1, presser. Phase 2 will be play calling. Phase 3 will be results. And then we'll see what happens after that, right? Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Zoe, double up, thank you for doubling up. Zoe writes, free agency is prioritize the offensive line, draft a corner, linebacker, etc. And I think ultimately they'll have enough money if they want to spend on a linebacker. They can do that. They can do that and still address offensive line. I think they're going to, trust me when I tell you, they're going to sign at least 2 offensive linemen in free agency and still may draft another. I could easily see them signing a guard and a lineman, a center in free agency, because it doesn't cost you a lot. Tackle is what costs you a pretty penny. You want a high-priced guard, you want Brandon Sheriff, you want Zach Martin, that's going to cost you a lot of money. That ain't what we're looking for. All right, at least not in free agency. You know, you want one of those dudes, you want to draft that guy and get some, you know, if you spend a first-round pick, you get 5 years of service out of him before you got to pay him real money, or at least 4 before you got to re-up. But if you get that guy in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and remember, with guards, you can find them anywhere. Same with centers. Find them anywhere. You know, Chase Roulier was fantastic for us before the injuries hit. He was a 5th, 6th round pick. He was a 5th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. You can find centers and guards anywhere. Andrew Norwell, when he was in his prime in Carolina, undrafted. You can find a guard. Tackles are a different story. They don't grow on trees, and they're not easy to find. And when you got one, you want to hold on to it. And so I think you definitely aren't looking to spend that kind of money on a guy in free agency. I'm looking for a draft pick there. So if they're going to go that route, I would say that this isn't the year to draft a tackle, personally, because, I mean, if you could theoretically do what they did with Sam Cosmi, you know, get a 2nd or a 3rd round guy. But I think it's more about the interior of the offensive line this year. But we'll see, because I don't think we're stable at tackle either, you know, especially if you're thinking about kicking Cosmi inside. That's the wild card, is what are they going to do with Sam Cosmi? Because Sadiq Charles, that experiment is run its course. He's done. He won't be on the roster next year. They gave him an opportunity this year. He wasn't good enough. So I'm not sure if Chris Paul is the answer or not, because we may be sitting here talking about the offensive line and what needs to be done. And they may be thinking, hey, we straight on the offensive line. We just need 1 or 2 pieces. We here talking about revamping the offensive line. We need, you know, 3 new starters. We need, you know, 1 or 2 extra backups. We talking about almost a damn overhaul of the offensive line. You know, the only guy right now that is all but guaranteed their spot on the roster is Charles Leno. And even he can be moved to right tackle if they find a left tackle in the draft or in free agency or whatever the case may be. So, but he's the only guy. Because we think both guards and center are up for grabs. I think all 3 interiors are up for grabs. And then I think right tackle is in flux, because we don't know what they're going to do with Sam Cosmi. They could just say Cornelius Lucas is right tackle, Charles Leno is left tackle. We're going to slide, you know, Cosmi in the right guard, and all we got to do is find a left guard and a center. And they may say Chris Paul is our left guard. All we need is a center. That could be their thinking, for all we know. But we'll see. Michael White, stand up. You are officially the newest member of the MOBB. Welcome to the squad. So glad to have you, Mom. Y'all know what to do. Show Michael White some love. Welcome him with open arms. So glad to have you. I feel like, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the squad. Anyway, glad to have you. Looking forward to chopping it up with you as a member of the MOBB. All right, let's see. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rocky D, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, sup, fellow monarch. What's going on, Rocky D? Says, based on the way EB answering these questions, I'm having a hard time believing he did that bad at these interviews. Just saying, look at these owners sideways. Looking at these owners sideways, LOL. We'll talk more about that tonight, because, again, a lot of people brought up some great points. But we'll talk more about it tonight, because I got a lot to say on that. So we'll talk about that tonight on the Command Post Live. But yes, to your point, and the more you do something, the more comfortable you become at it. So maybe the first 3 or 4 interviews weren't great for him. Now he's a veteran. He's done enough of these. He's ready. But again, a lot of times remember the Brian Flores situation where he was interviewed in Buffalo and Bill Belichick texted the wrong Brian. He had Brian Daboll, he had Brian Flores in his phone, and he hit the wrong Brian and sent the text message to Brian Flores congratulating him on getting the job. And he meant to send it to Brian Daboll. The Bills are the Giants already knew who they were hiring. Okay, Belichick used to coach in New York. These guys talk. Okay, they told him already, or Daboll had already told him, "I'm getting the job." They just gotta, dot their I's and cross their T's. These teams know who they want to hire a lot of times. Every now and again, they've got their eye on a candidate, and then somebody comes in and absolutely wows them and floors them in an interview, and they go, "Wait a minute, we got to rethink this. This guy's pretty damn impressive." But that's rare. Most of the time, they already have their sights set on a guy. That's again, microcosm of life. A lot of times when jobs become available, when they post that job, everybody thinks they have a shot. Hey, turn in that application. All right. Maybe you'll be promoted to foreman. Chances are they already know exactly who they're promoting to foreman. Okay. They already got a guy for the job. But regulations state that they got to put the job, post it, got to go through the process. They already know who's getting the job. It's not that different in the NFL. And the Rooney Rule, while it was aimed at helping minority coaches, it actually serves as a bit of a deterrent for some of these coaches to interview, because sometimes as a coach, teams are looking outside of their office and they're saying, "Hey, where's the first minority here? Man, just grab him, pull him in the office, let's interview him. Satisfy this Rooney Rule and keep it pushing." Like, no one wants to be a token interview. If I'm a minority coach, I might take the first one, even if I know it's a sham interview. I may take just to see what the process is like, right? But after a while, I'm not looking to go through that several times, knowing that I'm not going to get the job. You can't tell yourself that. If your agent calls you and say, "Hey, Baltimore wants to set up an interview with you," you got to take the interview, man. You don't know if it's a Rooney Rule status, them satisfying the Rooney Rule, or if they're legitimately interested in you as a candidate. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Anyway, I digress. We'll talk about it a little bit later on tonight. Logan Lodo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Logan Lodo writes, "I know you were talking about this the other day, but it's hard for me to believe he just gave a speech like that, but didn't get a job after 15 previous interviews. LOL. Something doesn't add up." Again, we'll talk about it a little bit later on tonight. But you guys get it. You guys get it. You understand here what's going on. And this is why people like myself and others are frustrated with his particular situation. And so when people say it's not a race thing, I find that hard to believe. But we'll talk about it later. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I appreciate y'all for coming and chopping it up with me on this midday stream. Eric Bieniemy spoke with the media over an hour ago. They wrapped up, and he was impressive. Walked away from that presser feeling like he's head coaching material, and that we are just a stop on what he called his journey. We're just a stop on the journey, man. We knew that coming in, and I feel that way even more so now after listening to him speak. that he's not only going to come in here and do a really good job, but he's going to get a job shortly thereafter. And hopefully we're not left picking up the pieces. Hopefully Ron is prepared when that comes, because that day is coming. I fully expect us to be here 12 months from now, bringing in another offensive coordinator or them having to make a decision. And hopefully that guy's already on the staff. Hopefully that guy's already on the staff. If Ron's still here, hopefully he's doing what he needs to do to put himself and this team in a position to continue to be successful if they have success, because that's the only way he's going to be here, is if they have success in 2023. He's not here in 2024 if Eric Bieniemy has success, but we're still a 7-10 team, or we're 8-9. Once again, he's not here after that. He's only here if we're 10-7 and we make it to the playoffs, or we're 11-6 and we win the division, win a playoff game. He's only here if that takes place. So hopefully he's putting this organization in a position to continue to win when Eric Bieniemy gets a head coaching job, because I do think that's going to happen. Anyway, I digress. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I like the way he says accountability. Read between the lines. Those players who showed up, no. That's one of, remember what Patrick Mahomes said. I played you the quote. I played you Patrick Mahomes talking about him holding me accountable every day. I read you the Patrick Mahomes quote, right? I read you the Travis Kelce quote. I played you multiple Patrick Mahomes sound bites of him talking about accountability over and over and over again. That's a big point of. That's a big talking point for Eric Bieniemy. That's one of his things. He's like, I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to hold myself to a standard, and I'm going to be accountable every single day, and I need you to do the same. And that's important. Accountability is important, because there have been times with this organization, with this particular staff, where we haven't always felt like accountability has been at the forefront of discussions that were being had with some of the issues that we were having. Haven't always felt like accountability was being taken by those who needed to take it. So, anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. We will be live later on tonight. Same time, same channel, 9:30 p. We'll be live. We'll talk about this presser in greater detail. Add anything to it that we feel like we need to add. We'll talk about some of the moving parts now on the staff as they continue to try to fill out the rest of the staff and the cabinet. And so we'll talk about that in greater detail tonight. And we'll have other discussions, about the roster and about different things. I think this is a great first impression by Eric Bieniemy, but I did not expect anything less. I got exactly what I thought I was going to get. Some of you walked away. Maybe you were on the fence. And again, he hasn't called a single play yet. Keep that in mind. Like, he's a hell of a motivator, if nothing else. You guys remember the Albert Haynesworth press conference, right? Who wasn't ready for Albert Haynesworth after that? You all know the product that we got with Albert Haynesworth. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. He's not Albert Haynesworth, though. He's a man of integrity. We don't have to worry about that. But still, understand that. Joe Judge, I literally went to bat for Joe Judge after hearing him speak. Won me over. I said, man, this is the guy for the job in New York. Joe Judge is going to turn some shit around. He turned out to be one of the worst coaches we've seen in the NFL. Not just in New York, in the NFL in the last decade. Okay. Man was running quarterback sneaks from his own, 4-yard line on second and third down. So just understand that it was what it was. It was an introductory presser. So take it for what it's worth. But anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. We'll reconvene later on tonight. We'll talk about everything under the sun regarding this presser and what it means and what they're looking to do. We may even have more news later on today. Greg Lewis may be officially a part of the staff. Tavita Stevens may officially be a part of the staff. We could hear other names surface from, other areas, so we'll see. Lots going on. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. I'll see you guys next time. God bless. And have a great afternoon.
LouieTeeNetwork.